Should we ever balance our capacity, our actual capacity, with our demand? Well, to cut to it, generally no. It would lead to incredibly long and unpredictable lead times with, predictably, terrible consequences for your customer delivery and their experience. Okay, let's step back. Don't you hate it when you go to a convenience store and there's a huge queue of people waiting to be served? You might think, how hard can it be to hire the right amount of staff? The right amount of capacity? Does it make you angry and maybe even not want to go and shop there again? Well, it's an understandable frustration, but let's also think about it from the point of view of the shop owner deciding how much capacity they need to hire. They did some analysis and they worked out that, on average, there are 300 customers to serve in a 10-hour day. And some other analysis showed that one cashier can easily serve 30 customers per hour and does a 10-hour shift. And so their actual capacity of one cashier is also 300 customers a day. A perfect match. Or is it? Over a day, the average demand and capacity might match perfectly, but do customers turn up exactly every 2 minutes throughout the whole day? 30 per hour, one every 2 minutes? Of course not. There's always variation in demand. And does the cashier always work at exactly the same speed? No. They have variation in their capacity too. And so, despite perfectly balanced capacity and demand on paper, we find we always have huge queues of angry customers glaring at the cashier as they wait a very long time. Well, this might be a good example of the dangers of planning your demand to meet your actual capacity. Variation is the key problem. Variation is an inevitable reality of all the world, variation in demand and variation in our capacity. The Japanese call it Mura, M-U-R-A, and in lean and in all good operations management circles, trying to reduce variation in demand and capacity is an essential aim. Just think, if there was no variability, everything would be fine. Our one cashier would have it sorted perfectly. How about, in fact, a fire station? Our fire service team might have the ability, the actual capacity, to attend 10 incidents per day. And if the government are to only pay for one fire team in the city, a city which has, on average, 10 incidents per day, all might seem perfect. But in this most extreme example, 100% capacity utilisation is not what we want from our fire service. Rather, we want ultra-short lead times and availability, so that fire service can go now. I have chosen one of the most extreme examples where availability is the absolute dominant metric. And this is not like most businesses, but it does show the direct trade-off between maximising for capacity utilisation and the huge impact it would have on the lead time and availability. In many businesses, jobs do not need to be worked on immediately, most of the time, but customers will be angry if they're put in a long and unexpected queue, especially if their houses burns down whilst they're waiting. The Kingman law is best shown on a graph plotting queue or wait time against the different levels of capacity utilisation in a real world where variation of capacity and demand exists. We see that when we have low levels of capacity utilisation, the queue or wait time is very low. This is where we want our fire station to be, doing nothing most of the time, so that they are typically able to respond immediately. The temptation in business, though, is to always take on a bit more work, to push a bit more work into the system, to use up some of that spare capacity, or to trim back on the capacity and try to get towards 100% capacity utilization. We've said before, it sounds nice, but as capacity utilization climbs past, say, 80%, extra capacity utilization starts to cause a dramatic increase in the queue and wait times. Trying to squeeze that little bit extra out of the system in output will land you with massive and unpredictable lead times, pissed off customers, missed deliveries, giant supermarket shopping queues, ballooning factory work-in-progress inventories, and burnt down houses. In our fire example, where variation in demand is uncontrollable and wildly unpredictable, we must have huge excess capacity to maximize availability and minimize lead times. But as the variability is reduced and controlled, in industries where demand is predictable, and we will talk about everything we can do as a business to reduce variation in demand and capacity, then we can afford to get a better level of capacity utilization whilst suffering fewer of those consequences. Those consequences, remember, as we trend towards balancing demand with capacity utilization, heading towards the dangerous but beautiful sounding ideal of 100% capacity utilization, if we do that in a world with variation, which we always have, then an explosion in lead times, inventory, and angry waiting customers is inevitable.